Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show. Meet the trusted experts who will give you straight answers and will help guide you on the path of later life care. Now, here's your host, founder, caregiver, and CEO, Suzanne Newman.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network. It has been an amazing 2023, and it's incredible that we are honored to start 2024 with a very special guest. And I have to say that we have a huge Christian audience. And for those of you that are Christians that are listening to this program, it is probably something that you'll definitely want to listen to. And if you're a regular listener to our show, most importantly, you probably have heard commercials going on our show about a program called Medi-Share. I recently got introduced to Medi-Share. And of course, as someone that works with seniors and works with, various different types of healthcare issues that seniors face, they have a special program called Medi-Share 65 Plus. And I am very honored to have their CEO, Mr. Brandon Harvath, and he serves as the president and CEO of Christian Care Ministry, which they call CCM, and it is a nonprofit 501c3 association of churches that manages Medi-Share. And so, Brandon, I am so honored. Welcome to Answers for Elders Radio.
Suzanne, thank you so much for having me on today. It's a blessing. Thank you.
Well, I feel blessed to have you guys. Like I said, I know how difficult it is to navigate healthcare, especially when you're 65 plus. Seniors are on fixed incomes. They oftentimes are faced with overwhelming medical scenarios. And for you, obviously, you come from an incredible vision of how you can help seniors as well as other individuals. But we're going to talk about Medi-Share 65 Plus today. And so could you just give me a brief background, and just for those of you that may not know what Medi-Share 65 Plus is?
Sure. Well, maybe a little bit about Christian Care Ministry. We've been in operation continuously now. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary. So how about that? Excited.
Congratulations.
Three decades in ministry. Now, I shared with you earlier, I get the privilege here of standing on the shoulders of giants, of visionaries, who saw this incredible need, right, in the body of Christ, in the church, many, many years ago, 30 years ago. And sure. And seeing that, clearly, like you said, whether you're a senior today, whether you're in a single, young, old, it doesn't matter. Healthcare is absolutely out of control. It's unaffordable. It's incredibly confusing. I mean, incredibly confusing. And it is just a blessing to be able to serve in this little space, right, for such a time as this, the body of Christ, and find solutions to help. And certainly in this case, we'll talk about 65 plus today, but to help seniors in particular, connecting needs with resources, all of those things that, whether it's those deductibles or those copays that go above and beyond that Medicare A and B don't cover. Right. The 65 plus kicks in and does, kind of like a, Medigap plan. But we've been doing this, again, it's been 3 decades. We are an association of churches. So I should add, we're here to advocate for you, for the body of Christ. And we're kind of just referees in the game and doing our best technology to bring various solutions like this, to folks who need it.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued because you're going right back to the roots of Christianity, of the concept of biblical teachings. Would you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, if you go all the way, Acts 2, certainly you see this picture of the early church, right? And Acts 2:42, they had all things in common. And in so many ways, it is a picture of the fulfillment of the law of Christ, right? Loving God and loving others. That's Galatians 6, right? If you think about fulfilling the law of Christ, sharing in one another's burdens. But you look further into Acts 6 and you see this issue in the early church that came up, right? Sure. And you've got this group of widows whose needs were being neglected. You had the Hellenists and you had the Jews, and there was this issue. It wasn't equal, and their needs weren't being cared for. And so the deacons were born, and they stepped into the space of connecting needs with resources in the body of Christ. And, Suzanne, I'm compelled by this. No matter how complicated the world gets or things like healthcare gets in the world, right? The church nowhere in Acts 6 do we see the church having a resource issue, right?
Hmm.
There's no resource issue in the body of Christ. And our
That's
God owns
correct.
cattle on a thousand hills, right? And so
Yeah.
how we come together, though, and share in one another's
Hmm.
needs and is so critical. And that's what we
Yeah.
strive to do here at Christian Care Ministry, connecting
Uh-huh.
needs with resources. There at the intersection of faith and health, and faith and
Uh-huh.
share, and how we do that in various means like
Right.
65
Right.
plus, right?
Yeah, and I love the fact that you are all about helping and being that servant to those. And you talk about the intersection, about that that there's no limit to resources. And we are reminded of that. My minister shared with me time and time again about, we're reminded of that by the air we breathe, by continuously of nature replenishing itself. It never runs out of resources. We have everything in our world around us that remind us of that has that, symbolism to all of us, that we can all live abundantly, right? And so that's just part of, I think, the whole concept of, am I getting that right, of
Yeah,
your
you've nailed it.
philosophy?
Yeah, and Suzanne, it's also taking things like incredible technology, right,
Yeah,
as Christians, and using it for the glory of God
sure.
in ways like this where we can care for one another.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's exactly what we do here at CCM.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously you've designed this program. Tell me a little bit about, if you're a senior, who's going to benefit most from Medi-Share 65
Yeah.
plus?
Well, and so as you say, even Medi-Share, I'll just remind your viewers and listeners that our core Medi-Share program is meant for many stages of life, if you will,
Mhm.
from very young up until in elder years, and as you get past
Mhm.
65 plus. But in our country, we have Medicare, right? And everyone
Absolutely.
knows about Medicare, and you've got programs like Part A and Part B. And so step
Right.
one really is for those who are enrolled in Medicare Part A and B, how
Mhm.
can you get those other expenses that might
Yep.
be eligible under Medicare but aren't fully paid for, right? Aren't
Mhm.
covered, to have a way to be able to fund those bills, because they can get
Absolutely.
expensive, right? Whether it's DME, whether it's hospitalizations,
Mhm.
all kinds of things, right, that are eligible but don't get fully paid for.
Right.
It's part of the reason why other Medigap type programs exist, and that really is the space that
Right.
65 plus, our program for
Mhm. Mhm.
years, kicks in, and it's really affordable too. That's as a ministry, we like to
Yeah.
keep as affordable as we possibly can.
Yeah. And the fact that you've been doing this for 30 years, it's like, obviously you have a proven formula that is helping people all along. And I know, Brandon, you and I are going to share some stories here later in the hour, which I'm very excited to have you share. But I think one of the things that you have a philosophy about consumerism. And as we close out this segment, if you're a Christian and you believe obviously in this concept that we're talking about, how can the Christian community make the greatest impact on today's world?
Suzanne, this is a question that should plague every believer out there. In the world we live in today, there's not a day that goes by we're not
Yeah.
challenged, faced with issues in our culture that go against our values, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we walk down the street and we try to transact business with a certain organization, and as you do that, it's going against your values. And so we don't like to think of this as an issue of, well, let's
Yeah.
boycott or boycott that. What we'd like to say is, and there are so many wonderful alternatives, right, that are built
Yeah.
around biblical values, that are built around values that we can agree on.
Sure.
And why not take advantage of those alternatives in the market today?
Mm-hmm.
Not just take a dollar, and you think about the stewardship of a dollar, every dollar that passes through your hand, every
Yeah.
dollar, moment of stewardship opportunity, and
Yeah.
make sure when that dollar comes out the other side, it's not 50 cents, but it's a
Sure.
dollar, right, moving
Sure.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when you think about that, it's true. I mean, I've been the staunch boycotter in my past about certain organizations, and yet, I find myself realizing that that's not the solution either. And this representing a lot of the division in our world. People are polarizing rather than finding ways to come together. And I think what you're doing is you're really modeling how we can do this and how we can get ourselves to come together to find areas of commonality, Brandon. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to do. These are very complex markets, difficult products, but we're excited to serve in this space.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Brandon, I am excited to have you spend the hour with us. And, we're going to talk a little bit about the sharing concept of Medi-Share 65 plus and Medi-Share. And Brandon and I, we're going to be right back right after this. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.